Hello everybody, this is PD from BurgZerg Arcade at BurgZergArcade.com, and here we are again with another little tutorial. Now today we're actually going to go ahead and do some refactoring on the two main scripts that we've written so far in our little NGUI series. And that's going to be the floating text and the floating sprite. The reason why I'm doing this, it's not really specifically NGUI, but just kind of something you should keep in mind as you move along for the people that are just starting out developing software. Is that you're going to go through these different cycles where you'll write something and you're going to come back and you're going to have to redo it. Maybe sometimes you're going to find ways to combine certain components together. And that's basically what we're going to do right now. We have two good examples here, so let's go ahead and we'll just work with these. So I'm going to create a new script right off the bat. And I'm going to call this, well, it has to do with the floating sprite and the floating text. So I'm just going to call it floating element. I'll go ahead, open that up. And we'll notice right off the bat we've got three scripts. I've already gone ahead and opened up my floating sprite and the floating text. But what we're going to do is take a look at these two here. Pick the things that we have in common that are in both of these. And we're going to want to move them over here. And then we're going to play around with inheritance. So instead of inheriting from auto behavior, we're actually going to inherit from floating element. So actually, let's do that first. If we go ahead and take a look here, floating element inherits from auto behavior, just like the rest. Let's scroll to the top here. So what I'm going to do is actually take the name of this one, floating element, and I'm going to go ahead and put both of these to inherit from there. Make sure you save them off. And I'm going to start with the awake. I'm actually going to go ahead and just cut this out. And I'm going to cut it out of here as well. We'll go ahead, we'll put it in the awake function here. So we're going to have to create it because there is none. So void public awake. And we'll just go ahead and paste that in. And I did it wrong. It's supposed to actually be public void awake. There we go. We'll go ahead. We'll save that off. Make sure the others are saved off as well. I'm actually going to go ahead and change the debug log here just so I know what awake is being called. So I'm actually going to say floating element awake. And I'm actually going to go ahead and copy and paste this into the other functions that I know I will be using, just so we can have a bit of an example of basically the order in which these are called. So this will be called start. And we don't have an update, but we do have a late update. And I'll just go ahead and change this. And now I'm just going to go ahead and go into one of my scripts here. And I'm just going to pick floating sprite to start off with. And I kind of want to look at these variables here and just kind of get an idea of which ones I'm going to be moving over. This can actually go up into the other list now. These are things I wanted to accomplish that we did. All right, so the UI sprite is something that I won't be moving directly over here. Same as the UI label. I want to keep those kind of specific to these particular classes. See, we do want to move this over, so I'm actually just going to go ahead and just put a little comment at the end. I also want to move this. Simply because both classes do have them. So we also have target, world camera, GUI camera, and if we come over here, we have them over here as well. And we need one more slash, and the GUI camera. And of course, we also have the transform. Now, I believe the transform is actually only used in two methods besides the awake, and I believe they're both down here. Yes, the following and the spawn at. Okay. Let's go ahead and actually start moving some methods as well, because I know the destroy me, if we take a look at it, it doesn't reference any of the variables in particular that we have already. So I'm just actually going to go ahead, cut it out of here, save it, come into floating text. I want to get rid of it here as well. We'll save it. Come into floating text. I'm going to put it after late update. I'm going to try to keep all of my Unity specific functions near the top. all of my custom ones near the bottom. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and actually copy all these variables that we want to move. And I'm going to move them over there as well. So we'll go ahead, we'll cut those out. Over here, we'll paste them in. We'll save that off. Make sure you save off the other script. So the only thing left here is the UI sprite. I'm actually going to go ahead and get rid of these comments while I'm up here as well. Just kind of clean things up. And now let's just start going down through each function and just go ahead and let's just move the stuff that we don't need. So we're going to go ahead, we'll move this part here, the t equals transform. I'm going to go ahead and move that in. And I'm going to put it right underneath my debug statement. I'm going to leave a spot there just for a little bit of clarity. Now, remember, anything that deals with the sprite, for now, I'm going to leave it here. But I want a way to be able to call this awake function here, the one that it's being inherited from. So right up here at the very start, I'm going to use base, which just means call the class that I inherit from. And I'm just going to call its awake function. So basically the way this works is when this script first wakes up or is first called, the awake function is called. Now the first thing that's going to happen is that it's going to go ahead and call this awake over here. So it's going to do everything that's in this awake. Then it's going to come back and do the rest of the stuff in this one, which is going to be our sprite stuff, which we might look at a little bit later on. So let's come down to our start function now. Now we do have the debug start, and just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to go ahead and do floating. This is the sprite. I'm going to go ahead and put that there, just so you can see the order it's being called in. And we're going to come down here and take a look. Actually, we don't really need our start function here because the GUI camera, if you remember, we've already moved that variable over to the floating element. And then there's no sprite here to be called. So I'm actually just going to go ahead, just move these over here. Oops, wrong class. We want to go to the floating element. I come into start, leave a line after the debug. We'll go ahead, we'll just paste it in. I went over a little too far. There we go. And I'm just actually going to get rid of the start. I don't need it anymore. All right, so text color. We do want to rechange this or change the name of this because before it did change the color of the text. But if you take a look, it's not really changing the color of the text specifically. It's just changing the color of the material that's on there. So I'm actually going to go ahead and refactor this. And I'm going to go ahead and just rename this, we can't call it color. Let's call it my color, just for the lack of a better name. And we'll go ahead, we'll hit OK. And it's going to go through and change it in a few places. And then after that's done, I'm going to go ahead and actually take this function. And let's come down here and actually look at follow target. This is another we're going to want. And then the actual target itself, we're going to grab that as well. So let's grab all three of these. And we'll just take them out of this script. We'll save it off. I'm going to come over to floating element. And I'm going to put them right above the destroy me. And I'll just come back in and we'll just start going through and looking at the rest. I'm definitely going to want to move size over. But it does deal with the size or the sprite. So we're going to leave it there for now. And we'll see, tween position, we can go ahead and move this because that's the same in both classes. So I'll go ahead and I'll put that above destroy as well. And let's see, what else do we have here? We have init, which I believe we have over here and is different. So we'll leave those for now because they are different. And spawn at, I believe, is the exact same. So we have a game object target, vector size, and a parent. Transform parent. Yep, those are the exact same. So I'm going to go ahead, move that over. Let's see, we're going to go with the following, which I believe we can move over. Yep. And the late update, we can actually move over as well. But I'm going to grab these ones first. Well, go ahead. Right above the destroy me. Save that off. Come into the floating sprite. And I'm going to grab what's in the late update. Cut it out and go paste it in the other one. But I'm also going to get rid of the actual function itself because I no longer need it. So we'll have to go up here to my late update up here. And we'll just go ahead and paste it in. And to be honest, that should be it for the floating sprite. And it should work just like it did before. I'm actually just going to leave a space here. I just like to leave one after the initial debug log statement. So let's go ahead and actually fix up. Let's actually change this here just so we know. Now let's go ahead and actually fix up the floating text as well. Basically, we do the exact same thing, except instead of moving it, we're just going to go ahead and delete the stuff because it's already moved over there. So that means we can get rid of all of our variables except for the UI label. In awake, we're going to want to call base awake. We can get rid of that. Basically, the only thing left over is going to be anything that has the LBL in it. So we got rid of the start completely. We got rid of text color, which we actually did rename to. Let's see. Did we rename it? My color. That's it. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and just refactor it here. This way here it changes it in any script that referenced this. So basically right now it's just the driver. That's the only script I have that actually references this class. But instead of me having to load up the driver and go through and look for all the places where it referenced the actual text color, this way here it just does it for me. All right, now text will have to leave here. Let me actually take a look at this. I might end up with an error. Let me see my color. Yeah, we actually have a sprite. So I don't want to deal with that just yet. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that out of there because it wasn't supposed to be copied over. And I'm going to go ahead and paste it back here. So I'll just do right above size. That's fine. And we'll leave my color here, even though it's the same name. Text is going to stay the same because we have the label reference in here. Follow target gone. Target gone. Font will have to leave here because it deals with the label again. Size deals with the label. Tween position does not deal with any specific to this script. The init does because of the text here. And I'm just going to go floating text. And the next will be the spawn at, which we can copy over. Well, we already did copy over, so we'll just get rid of it. Following does not deal with the label, so we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. And we can also get rid of the late update. There we go. Let's go ahead. We'll save this off. And make sure we come over and save the floating element off as well. Now the next thing I want to take a look at is being able to move over these UI sprites and UI labels. Moving them, at least a reference of them, into here. And if we actually go ahead and take a look at UI Sprite in the website for it, let me see, let's go ahead, we'll open up Google, and we'll just say NGUI UI Sprite. And we'll go take a look. We'll notice here that it actually inherits from UI Widget. So that's what I'm going to use over here in the floating element. And it's going to be protected. And I'm just going to go ahead and make it a UI widget. And I'm just going to call it underscore widget. Now I'm going to come down. We don't actually have anything here that deals with the widget specifically. So what I'm going to do is come down and take something like size. We'll start there. But we'll do size and color at the same time. So we'll cut both out. And I hit the wrong button. There we go. Save it off. I'm going to come over to floating element. And before destroy me, I'm going to go ahead and post them both in. And then come through here, and instead of using Sprite, I'm actually going to use Widget now. And down here, same thing. And we'll come over to size, and again, just switch it over to Widget. And we'll go ahead, we'll save that off. Let me see if there's any more left over here. Just the init. And the init is different on both of those, so I'm going to leave it again just till a little bit later on. So I'm going to come in here and take out the size and the color, because we now have this function, or both those functions moved over here. And now I'm going to move back into the floating sprite. And right here where it says sprite, I'm actually just going to change it to widget. And the same thing here. And let me see here. Now, there's nothing that I need this UI sprite for in this script. So I'm going to go ahead and actually, well, I'll just comment it out for now. We will still need it in the floating text here because we do still have a few functions that deal with it. But we'll deal with that in just a minute here. I just want to take a quick look here, make sure nothing else needs to be changed. I'm not seeing anything, so I'm going to go ahead, save it off. Head into Unity, see if there's any errors. We'll deal with those in just a minute. Let's go ahead, we'll start it up, and when we hit the driver, we should hit the little foot. And it's following along. So let's go ahead and we'll stop this. And I added the debug log lines just so you could see the order of what functions are called in. So it started off, we got the floating sprite awake, which then calls the floating element awake, which then goes the floating sprite init, the floating element start, and then we get into the floating element late updates. So generally when you're developing your script, especially for people that are really new to scripting, it's really helpful to actually keep those little lines in there just so you can actually see what order things are being called in. So let's go ahead, we're going to head back into MonoDevelop. And now I want to take care of those two little warning messages that we got about hiding inherited methods. And this is happening because we have an awake method right here. And we also have one in the floating element which we inherit from. So it's telling me that I'm actually hiding this one. And if we did not have this line right here, all the stuff that we have in this awake would not be called. So to get around this, I'm just going to go ahead and add the new keyword up here. And this is pretty much it for now. I'm actually going to go ahead and keep the UI sprite here because I do know that later on I probably will want to add another function here that allows me to actually change the icon that's being displayed. But for right now, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it just like this, nice and simple now. And I'm going to come over to the floating text and start working on it. So I'll start off with a new word. We're going to have to leave this uncommented because we are going to need it for the text and the font because those are not present in a UI widget. So I will need those. And I'm going to go ahead and say that the label, grab the component here, and the widget is going to be equal to the label. So we'll go ahead and we'll leave that. Another way we could do it is actually just to go, oops, leave a space there, go underscore widget is equal to the label, which is equal to the get component. I just generally like to do it in 2 lines. We're going to go ahead. Well, we can leave it either way because I do know we are going to need it here, but I'm just going to change it over to widget. And these will have to stay as label because, like I said, they do not belong to widget. And I'm going to leave this just the way it is. Let's go ahead and see if we actually have any errors. None. So I'm going to go ahead and load that scene up that we have our floating text on. Go ahead, we'll save that one. And we'll go ahead and just start it up and take a look. So go ahead, we'll hit the driver. And there we go. It's working just as before, except now our script is much shorter, a little bit cleaner to look at, and should be a little bit easier to expand a little bit later on. Anyway, this video has gone a little bit longer than I anticipated, but hopefully you stuck with it to the end and you learned a little bit about refactoring. And well, I'll see you in the next videos. Bye-bye.